Okay, hello and welcome everybody. Um, Today is Therapy Thursday. It is January 12th, 2023, and I am so glad to see so many people join us today for Therapy Thursday. My name is Evan Adler. I am a physical therapist here at UNC Health. And for UNC Therapy Services, I'll tell you a little bit more about me as we get into the talk. But you are currently attending Therapy Thursday, which is our virtual lecture series brought to you by UNC Therapy Services and the Community Engagement Committee. We started this as part of our outreach to the community when COVID first started, because what we typically do as PTs and our committee is in person, hands on, working with people, helping them reach their goals. And with COVID, we weren't able to do that. So we tried to find a new way to reach out to everybody. And I think we found a good one. So in the chat there, you will find links to our Facebook page where you can find information on other events that we're doing, both virtual and in person. And you'll also find a link to our YouTube channel where you can find past episodes of Therapy Thursday. And you'll be able to see talks on a wide variety of topics, from balance to knee pain to running to pelvic health issues, and all sorts of different things. So I do encourage you to go visit our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, do all the things. Go check out Facebook. And enough about that stuff. Let's talk about running. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you my my screen here. And you don't need to see me in front of the presentation. That's a little weird. Okay. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about resolution running. A little introduction to me. My name is Evan Adler. I'm a physical therapist. I'm the clinic coordinator here at the UNC Wellness Center at Northwest Cary PT Clinic here. Let's see, I've been here a little over 6 years. I'm a board certified orthopedic specialist, certified in Graston technique for instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization, dry needling certified, all sorts of fun stuff. I am originally from New York, but I've been down here in North Carolina since 2008. Big music enthusiast, love running, tennis, softball, cycling, proud husband, father. Those are my kids there. Jackson and Emerson. That's actually last year's picture. They're a little bigger now, but still pretty cute. Let's see. So one plug that I would like to make before we get into all the topics today is that I am extremely proud to be on the team working to help launch and present in a new venture, the UNC Running Symposium. So this is going to be a joint venture between UNC Therapy Services and Bull City Running Company, one of our local running outfitters here, and the Sports Medicine Institute here at UNC. And we'll be hosting a running symposium, which will be a day-long lecture series with continuing education credits provided for PTs, PTAs, and ATCs. But it is open. I guess technically it is open to the public, and registration is open now. So if you are interested, if you are a running medicine professional and are interested in this, I do encourage you to go to that website down there at the bottom, which is bullcityrunning.com/2023 running symposium. You'll be able to find more information, and registration is open now. All right, on to the topics of the day. So resolution running. Here we are, the beginning of the year. As a PT, I always hear patients say what their resolutions are for the new year. I want to lose weight. I want to get healthier. I want to eat better. One of them is always, I want to get back to running. So today we're going to talk about how to do that safely. Okay, we're going to talk about proper running form. Identify some factors to increase your running efficiency. Address safe, appropriate mileage progression and return to running. We'll talk about best practices for injury-free running and explain the importance of the kinetic chain. We'll also impart prevention strategies to help avoid injuries. If you've heard me give talks before in person or virtually on running topics, you'll know that that kinetic chain is a big part of what we do to make sure that things are working effectively and efficiently. So we will talk more. All right. So prevalence of running injuries. 60 to 80% of runners experience some level of injury every year. I am currently a victim. I have some foot issues that have put me on the shelf for a while. So I'm currently trying to heed my own advice to get back to where I want to be. Most running injuries are musculoskeletal overuse injuries. So that cumulative overload of the lower extremities, leading to about 70 to 80% of those injuries being from the waist down, right? That impact of the ground, hitting it properly or improperly, and pushing through, causing some sort of chain reaction all through the body, resulting in these injuries. And we'll talk about why it is such an overuse injury when we get into a little bit of the numbers. But the bottom line is running is a great form of exercise, but there are always risks for injury. No matter what type of exercise you're doing, there's always some risk. And people say that running is bad for you. I disagree. Bad running is bad for you, but good running is absolutely good for you, and I highly recommend it. All right. So, proper running form. Proper, correct form. I think it's very important to tell people that there's really no such thing as an ideal running form. We are all individuals. We have unique and anatomical makeup. We all look different. We move different. So to think that we would all look the same running is not not acceptable. So there is no proper running form. So we're all different shapes, types, ability levels, and the type of running that we want to do may be different, right? A sprinter down there on the bottom is going to look way different than a long distance runner. That's Meb Keflezighi up there, very, very famous long distance marathoner. And, his form looks way different than lots of others. So I think it's important to say that you, the runner, you who's watching this, you have your own best running form. Okay. And you may not be doing that just yet, but we can find it and we can help you get there. So one thing we talk about is running efficiency. Okay. So I like to think, and I've heard this phrase used before, but the body it's a human slingshot. Okay, so I love looking at the physics of things. That's why I'm in orthopedics. The body is just a system of pulleys and levers, right? You move something one way, it forces something to go another way. The muscles, especially the tendons, work as slingshots, right? You put energy into the system, and then it releases it back out of the system. So running efficiently, we're trying to use forward motion with using as little energy as possible, right? So making it as efficient as possible, keeping all the energy that you use, using it to move forward. We'll talk about that in a moment too. Also, energy absorption as we hit the ground, right? So I often hear and see people with overstriding, right? So they reach out really far in front of them with their leg and they hit with a hard heel strike, right? It's essentially stopping yourself as you're running and then picking it up again to the next step. So there's a very herky-jerky type of motion, and that also puts a lot of shock through the body. So the ideal place to be, what we shoot for is for that foot to land slightly in front of your center of mass. Okay, I'll wait for the question. Where's the center of mass? Oh, good. I'm glad you asked. So your center of mass is located at the intersection of just beneath your belly button and about 2/3 towards your back. And where those kind of points meet is where your center of mass is. So when you land, if you see that picture there, you kind of land with your foot almost right underneath you. Okay, so you've already started to pull back into your motion to get moving forward before you even hit the ground. And that's what makes us more efficient. Let's see here. I want to make sure I can see. Sorry, I'm taking a quick pause here to make sure I can see the chat in case there are any questions. Okay, cool. There it is. All right. So ways to make us more efficient is to eliminate that wasted energy. Okay, if you look at that little picture there up on the top right, you'll see that first picture has this high vertical oscillation, right? So this big sine wave, up and down, right? And I kind of look at someone's head when they're running, and if they're bouncing a whole lot, I know that they're pushing up and down a whole lot, which is wasting energy, which we should be pushing forward as opposed to pushing up and down. So that vertical displacement there will kind of tell me if you are a quad dominant runner versus a glute dominant runner. That quad dominant runner is going to push and extend their knee to push you straight up. When that happens, you're going to get this kind of bouncing sensation. And with that bouncing sensation, you're wasting that energy. If you're using those glutes, you're going to drive back behind you more and push yourself forward as opposed to up and down. One way that we try to address that is with quicker turnover. And with that quicker turnover, we start to look at cadence. Okay. So when we talk about cadence, there is this magical cadence, this magical 180 beats per minute that has been put out there. That number comes from a study that was done of Olympic athletes. These are your highest quality runners, well trained through and through. So to say that 180 is the ideal cadence, not for everybody. Okay, so for example, before I got hurt, I was running at about 155 beats per minute, right? So that's how many times your feet, left and right, hit the ground total per minute. So we've found through research that you can get a huge benefit just by increasing about 10% of your cadence, your beats per minute, to try to increase your turnover and become more efficient. So for me at 155, I'd only be increasing about 15 beats per minute. That's still at 170, well below that 180 beats per minute. So lots of fun numbers around there. Something you can play with in PT itself. Okay, so now that we're getting back to running, we want to talk about a safe, appropriate mileage progression. So the general rule of thumb is to increase your weekly mileage no more than about 10% and remain at that new mileage for about 2 to 3 weeks before increasing again. That's the part that is often missed, is that increase, that weekly increase. It should be there for a little bit and to adjust to that before increasing again. All right. So, and this really applies to running, more experienced runners, high mileage, right? So 25 miles plus a week. I know some people personally on here who run way more than 25 miles a week. So, when they increase 10%, that's a fair amount. But if we take a little broader view, there are some newer studies that show that inappropriate increases of, sorry, that's a typo there, but increases of increased mileage of greater than 60% per month results in severe increase in risk for injury. Okay. So even though you're increasing slowly per week, if you're not giving that a little bit of time to kind of settle in, you could be increasing way too quickly. So slow and steady wins the race, right? Especially if you're just getting back to running, take it easy out there. Nice, easy progressions. Beginners, running 1 to 4 miles about 2 to 3 times a week. When you're comfortable, you can add a day of low mileage, or a small amount of mileage per run is a nice way to do it. Another way to do it is if you're first getting back into it is a run walk progression. And I've put a sample one there if you can see that on your screen. And you can see how it starts with a little bit of running and more walking. And then it kind of gets to the point where it evens out. And then the tables shift, right? So now you're running a little bit more than you're walking, but and this is over a series of weeks. Training your body to transition and accept the movements of running into your body. Build up that tolerance and build up your endurance and greater tolerance to that impact. I do see that there was a comment put in here, which I think is excellent, saying that regarding your cadence, if you run with music, searching your BPM on one of the streaming services can help you stay on beat with your BPM. It's an excellent recommendation there. All right, so I also highly recommend a warm up and cool down, especially if you're coming back to running, haven't done it in a while, but really for everybody. You want to adapt your body for acclimating to exercise, right? You want to transition from that anaerobic to aerobic exercise, right? So anaerobic is more power, strength, explosive. You're using the stores in your muscles to go ahead and provide power. Aerobic exercise, you're transitioning to using more oxygen in the system. So you need to train your lungs, train your body, and that gets you into a more distance running kind of perspective. That cool down helps you return to a pre-exercise state without a hard stop, right? So your heart's going to keep on pumping when you've stopped. So that's going to provide a lot more fresh oxygenated blood to the muscles, and you're not using it anymore. So that can lead to some complications as well. I highly recommend a dynamic warm-up beforehand. So a dynamic warm-up would not be like bending over and holding a hamstring stretch for 30 seconds. It would be more like swinging your leg back and forth to get the motion in your leg. Something just to get things moving a little bit. Get the blood pumping, get you ready to move. After you're done exercising, that's when I would do your static stretches. Hold those stretches for at least 30 seconds at a time per muscle group. And when we get to the end here, I have some examples of what my favorite ones are. All right, so best practices for injury-free running. I know not everybody has their cameras on, and that's totally fine. But of everybody here who's had a running injury in the past 5 years, I'd normally say raise your hand. But I'm just going to go ahead and raise my hand for everybody because you're probably here because of that. So, between 37 to 56% of recreational runners get injured every year. So many running injuries. So we say that they're overuse injuries because when we're running, we're hitting the ground approximately 1,000 times per leg per mile. That's a lot of repetition, a whole lot of repetition. And if you're training for something larger, 5K, 10K, half marathon, Ironman, there's so many things that, ultra marathons out there. This is a very repetitive exercise, very rewarding one, but very repetitive. So how do you know if you're ready to run and train for a long distance event and stay injury free? Well, glad you asked. So let's talk about that kinetic chain. I alluded to it before. I think it's extremely important to have this basis as we look into some of these other things. So the quote I always cite is, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Well, even that first step of 1,000 miles can lead to great injury if we're not utilizing that chain. As we go up and down the chain of the body, um, it alternates per joint of that balance of stability and mobility. You need to be able to be strong enough, but flexible enough to maintain both of these things. And that balance is what really makes us effective. So, looking at the bottom, right, the foot itself, even though the foot is flexible and has a lot of different bones and mobility to it, the foot itself should be stable. It should act as a rigid lever, right? It kind of flexes, stores energy, and helps to push off. The ankle is more mobile. It's a multiplanar joint, moves all around, helps us encounter different terrain. The knee is a hinge joint. Very, very simple, straightforward joint. It needs to be a very stable one. The hip, a ball and socket joint, has that mobility to it for swinging and moving. And then the low back, your lumbar needs to be very stable with that core strength. And then your thoracic spine around your ribs and your vertebra there needs to have that rotational mobility. So alternating up and back, that stability and mobility dichotomy. Okay, so that book there on the right is one that I cite often. Jay Dicharry is a PT and a research guy. Very, very smart and excellent speaker as well. This book here is great for PTs, but also just for the layperson. For your typical runner, can be very influenced by some of the things. He speaks to a lot of these points. So the key points that he kind of puts forward are, your posture, making sure the spine is loaded properly for dynamic stability. You got to get the ability to get your leg behind you. So do you have hip flexibility, ankle flexibility? Can you adapt to the ground and stabilize? So you need ankle flexibility and foot stability to hit the ground, adapt to it, and then push it back behind you. Can you establish that hip dominance to make yourself run faster? Driving with your glutes, eliminating that sine wave so you're moving more straight forward. And then it's important to recognize, like we said before, everyone has their own best form. Your pattern is going to replicate your unique structural alignment. So you should not look like Meb. You should look like you doing your best. And PTs can absolutely help out with that. Okay, so are you strong enough? This guy is too strong enough. I want to show you just a couple of quick little videos here and show you some of these tests that I do in clinic that I think can be very beneficial. So I'm going to stop with that for a moment. I'm going to pull up, let's see. Hold that thought. Here we go. Share. Here we go. Okay. So the first one, oh, hey, I'm down at the bottom. Hey, look at me. Hi. Okay. So the first video that I like to show, right, is this vertical compression. So I'm just going to play this here. I'm going to talk because he's got a really nasally voice. I like mine better. So as he pushes down, you can see that this guy has his back kind of arched. So when his friend is pushing straight down on him, it's actually pulling him backwards, right? So this guy's going to do a little self-correction here in a moment to straighten himself up. There he goes. And now when he does this test, he's going to push on top and oh, that's interesting. I don't know that one. Anyway, but when you push on top, when he's all straightened up like that, that pressure comes straight down and gets him out of that that tilted forward way. All right. So this is a squat with a stick here. So can you maintain a neutral alignment of your back as you're doing a squat? Right? So now he's kind of shifting all around in there. So that stick I have run from right behind the head to between the shoulder blades, and then right to kind of the top of your butt there. If you can maintain all of those, then you know that you can maintain that kind of core strength. All right. I also like to see if my people can do a single leg bridge. So I'll have them start off in a double leg bridge, pushing straight up, core is tight, glutes are activated, and then running is a one-legged activity. So we need to be able to do it on one leg. So can you do a single leg bridge? One leg out, bring it up into that bridge position and keeping your pelvis level as you do it. And he's nice and straight across there. Okay, of course we don't run on our back. So can you do a single leg squat? Right? So up and down, focusing on that form. Now she's doing what you would consider a pistol squat with your legs straight out in front of you. Very challenging if you don't have adequate range of motion. But what's more important is that her hips are staying nice and level. She can control it, and her knees not collapsing in, her hips not dropping. She's got nice form through that limited range of motion there. Last thing I like to talk about is toe yoga. So some of my patients who I know are on here know about toe yoga. Do you have the strength within your foot to control that solid, stiff lever? And can you separate the activity of your toes to do that? Lift your great toe, the big toe, all by itself. And that also helps to ensure the arch of the foot as well. So these foot intrinsics. And then she goes over to the other toes, the lesser toes, if you will, able to lift those without lifting your big toe. All right. So let's go back here. Okay. You guys are doing great. You're hanging in there. So, here are my top strengthening exercises. When people come in and they want to know, I want to be stronger as a runner, how do I do it? I got to move me. I look awkward there. There we go. Maybe here. I'll run next to him. I'm just moving around. I'm getting out of here. Okay. So single leg bridge, a squat with a band around your knees. I like doing the running man exercise, which is essentially just running in place while staying on one leg, moving and swinging the other leg back and forth. I love a dead bug exercise. It's a fantastic core exercise, helping to work on these cross patterns along the core. And then side plank with hip abduction. That's going to get you that lateral stability, the sides of your hips nice and strong, as well as your core. All right, so how do we know if we're flexible enough? So here are some tests that I like to use. That first one up there is standing and trying to get your knee to the wall. It shows us if you have enough calf length. I like to do a hip flexor test to see if you can just get your hip behind you, your leg behind you at the hip just to start with. That's that Thomas test at the top right there. At the bottom left, you have your checking out your hamstring length. So flexing your hip to 90 degrees and then extending your knee. Can you get fully straight at the knee? Or do you have some restriction there? For runners, I find that there's always a little bit of tension in that system for hamstrings, which is perfectly fine. We use that tension to our benefit as that slingshot. So a little bit of tension back there is okay. And then you need to be able to push off that big toe. So we like to have at least 30 degrees of extension at your big toe. All right, here are my favorite stretches to do, particularly post-race or post-run, I should say. Stretching for your calf, not just your big gastroc muscle, but the soleus muscle, the two muscles of the calf. You can see the gastroc, his back knee is straight in that first one. For the soleus, his knee is bent. That's the main difference between those two. Then you've got a nice hamstring stretch, making sure you're bending at the hips and not the waist. You want to make sure that your core is nice and tight as you're leaning forward there. Glutes, trying to bring that hip up to stretch that back quarter, get that butt muscle nice and loosened up. Then you got that hip flexor stretch in that kneeling position, a nice standing quad stretch, and then a stretch for your IT band, which is kind of a misnomer. Your IT band does not actually stretch, but it does have some stretchy qualities around it. But that's for another talk. So we'll just leave that one as it is. All right. Are there questions? So I want to open up the chat right now. And while you're thinking about questions, my boys, thank you for joining us. We say T Hanks and T Hanks a lot. But what's more important here is that I want to get over here to the chat. Earlier on in the chat, I put a link to our Facebook page. I'm going to go ahead and, one second, I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint, and I want to share, uh-oh, did I close it? I closed it. Okay, so never mind. So on our Facebook page, if you go to our Facebook page and you go under photos, you will be able to see a whole bunch of sheets that I have there with my favorite exercises for strengthening, exercises for stretching, and then a whole program of foam rolling to help with loosening things up in general. So with that said, I'm going to take a look at my chat here. Okay, so there is a question here about shin splints. I get shin splints a lot when I run. Is that due to my running stance? Well, as we always say for for everything in PT, it depends. It very well may have to do with your running stance. It could be from hitting the ground really hard and accepting some of that pressure as you come through. It could be not pushing off enough through your foot as things are moving, and it could be a muscle imbalance. So if you're getting shin splints regularly, I would recommend seeing a physical therapist that specializes in running gait analysis to put you on the treadmill. Let's actually take a look at it, slow it down to the moments within, and then you can kind of pick it apart and see what really needs to be fixed along the way. Let's see. So let's see. What are effective exercises for runner's knee? Okay, so for runner's knee. So for those who aren't familiar, that's usually associated with pain at the front of the knee, sometimes underneath the kneecap or just past the kneecap. And what that usually entails is increased pressure of your patella, your kneecap. So this will be a side view. So the kneecap is pressing in against the knee a little too much as it's gliding here. We see this a lot with people who have very hard heel strike or just tight quads in general. Quads, so those are the muscles on the front of your thigh. So for runner's knee, the first thing I would do is make sure you have adequate muscle length. making sure that your quads are of a good length, your calves are of a good length. Some of those tests that we showed before, right? Trying to get your knee to the wall. So your foot starts about 10 centimeters away from the wall, and then you bend your knee to try to touch the wall. And that'll kind of show you if you have that functional length of your calf muscles. For your quads, if you lie face down and you're able to grab behind you, grab your foot and pull it and hit your butt, well, then you have good quad length. If you're not hitting your butt completely, then your quads are probably pretty tight and you're causing some compression at that joint. So for runner's knee, my first thing is to check muscle length. The second thing would be to check hip strength. Are you doing anything at your hips when you're in that single leg stance that's causing here's your leg, here's your pelvis. Are you dropping out at all? That's causing some malalignment down the chain, right? Kinetic chain, stability, mobility, trying to match everything up. So if you are not if you're not all lined up there, you could be causing pressure in different places. There was a question here about our Facebook. So I'm going to go ahead and put it here. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/UNC Therapy Services. And if you go to that page, I honestly don't know if you have to follow us or like us first, but after you do that, there will be a little tab there that says photos. And if you go there, you will be able to see some of these, all of these exercises there. All right. Any other questions for me in the chat? Kind of leave it open here. While we're waiting for any more, I do want to wish everybody a very happy New Year. I hope you had wonderful holidays. If you are a running medicine professional and are interested in our running symposium, I do encourage you to visit bullcityrunning.com/2023 running symposium. It'll be a wonderful full day event that's going to be held right here in the Triangle in Morrisville, very close to Durham, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, and full day event. Lots of great speakers and topics covering a wide variety of running issues. But visit that site and you'll be able to see more details about the speakers who will be coming. All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, which I don't think there are, all right, I'm going to thank everybody for coming out today. I really appreciate you spending your lunch with me. I hope you got something valuable out of this. If not, it was good to see you anyway. This will be posted up on our YouTube channel. So if you missed anything and you want to go back and check it out, it should be there by tomorrow. And I will also post on our Facebook page when it is available. So thank you all so much for coming. Our next Therapy Thursday, I don't believe is going to be until March. But again, follow us on Facebook and there will be announcements about future events. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day and we'll talk to you later. All right. Bye now.
Thanks, Evan.